back. I'm just flipping a page in my notebook here because I had an idea and I don't want to forget it. You know how that is? Ideas come and you don't have the notebook and you say, I'll remember it. And then, you don't. Alrighty then. Welcome to my little, I'm just going to click this thing. Ta-da! Welcome to my little corner of the world. It's really, really going to be a warm day today. We've had days recently where it was trying to be sound like hail on the windows, and I think I need something a little warm on my throat. Hang on a sec. Yes, much better. Yesterday morning it sounded like hail on the windows, and I thought, what? And it was just really heavy, hard rain. But across the country, there have been bursts of rather strong, grumpy, sulky, not very tantrum kind of weather. But today it looks like it's going to be beautiful and nice and warm and sunny. So in celebration, I am wearing my nice, warm and sunny jacket. Now then, I want to talk to you about something interesting that happens to all of us. And we react many times without realizing what we're doing. It's a very interesting, quirky thing we do. So just another sip to get us going. Oh, by the way, I got a nice little email from LinkedIn saying that quite a few hundred people have been checking out the videos. So thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you from my little corner of the world to yours. It's always delicious and delightful to see new people saying, what's that over there? So the theme today is people shift priorities. They shift their focus. They shift their purpose. They don't always tell us that they're doing it or they've done it. We just get to find out with everybody else. And it comes as a good morning, Maggie. How nice to see you. When people shift their focus, it comes as a great surprise because we say, why didn't they say something? It's a lot like branding. I accidentally got branded, and not only the kids show, but the Care Bears and all of the other animations. And I could very easily, because it's been a while, right? I could very easily say, oh, please, that was then and this is now. Except why would I do that? There is so much uncertainty and upheaval in our lives. People enjoyed those shows when they were, in difficult moments. It's still on YouTube. You can still watch. Why would I toss that out? Why would I throw out the baby with the bathwater? It's perfectly harmless. She's just standing there. She's not doing any housework. She never did, really. She's not in the way. And it's a fun thing for us to be able to reference together because it's what we once had in common. And we still do. As long as Mom Valerie is around, as long as the Care Bears are around and you can see everything, it means that there's a sense of safety. There's a sense of tradition. There's a sense of kind of sanctuary in that. And I think what happens when people suddenly to us shift their focus, suddenly to us without warning, suddenly an oven, is we feel abandoned. We feel almost like they broke up with us, almost like they lied to us because they didn't tell us that they were moving in that different direction. And there we were facing this way, and we hear them over there. And we think, you could have said something. And they say, yeah, I know, but I was busy. Oh yeah, I know, but this is so exciting. And you feel kicked to the curb. Because by the way, we're kicked to the curb. When they're all excited about their new thing, we're kicked to the curb. I joke sometimes when I'm having a conversation and somebody says, oh my God, Abby, so good to see you. Oh my God, to the other person. And I say, I feel like the first present they opened at Christmas. Pause. And it's not wrong. We feel those things. And in times of, uncertainty and like, where's my house? Where's my house? That kind of thing. We want stuff to feel familiar and safe and easily reached for. You know, you put out your hand for this and you get that, and you think, when did that change? Oh, right, me, yesterday. And it's really unsettling. So I want to talk about the immediate thing that we tend to do when something like that happens. Hang on a second. We tend to go along when somebody changes something dramatically after our first shock of surprise. We tend to try and act like, yeah, well, we were with it all along. Like, oh yeah, gosh, I was there at the beginning. See, I'm wearing a kilt too. One of the transfers in my military kid life, we ended up at a base and all the girls wore kilts. Here's the thing about a kilt. Even when you're Scottish or Irish, even then, kilts don't look good on everybody. It takes a certain kind of thing to make a kilt work. And I'm looking at this group of girls. And really the only one who looked good in the kilt was this one particular girl. And I realized she was the queen. She was the one saying, and we're all going to wear a kilt. And so they all put on their kilts and they all stood there looking in the mirror and going, but at least I belong. Yeah, no. So I remember thinking, what's up with that? What is the point of that? And it was funny. We weren't there that long. It was a fairly quick posting. But I remember one day saying to my mom, could we, I don't know if I really want to, but maybe could we go and look at kilts? And she said, good heavens, whatever for? I said, I don't know. And she said, well, not unless we're going to cut the kilt up and use it for dish rags. You don't want to wear a kilt. And I said, no, I didn't think I did. And well, hi there. And who are you? Let me see. We have a new person. And your name is? Okay. It's a nickname. Welcome. So, but I had gradually come around to the idea that maybe it wouldn't be that bad. And I don't know why I had decided that maybe it wouldn't be that bad, because when my mother said, why? And I realized, oh yeah, right. Because it wouldn't look any good on me. But the norm, we're all gazelles on the savannah in Africa. And what we all want to look like is each other, very carefully blending in, making no sudden moves, so that the lion doesn't know which one to choose. That's how ancient that fit in where the uniform thing is. It goes all that way back. How can I distinguish myself from everybody else? You don't want to. Well, how can I distinguish us from them? They'll wear a different thing. Gazelles don't look anything like zebras. Okay, then. All right, so that works. So if I want to be a zebra, I got to dress like a zebra. Exactly. Got it. What if I want to be me? Well, then apparently you end up looking like this. So that's the preamble. That's where it comes from, I think. It's our desire to be part of, right? So here's the other thing, what I'm talking about today. And that is that when people shift their focus, when they come up with a new reason, a new purpose, a new excitement, a new thing that wasn't their thing yesterday, we have choices. We always have choices. Door number one is we can say, okay, oh, it's all new, boof. And where do I get the new supplies? The other is, no, I'm going to stay with what I've got. And door number three is walk me through it. Because door number three and walk me through it is the opportunity for us to look at a shift and ask ourselves those 5 all-important questions. And the 5 all-important questions, for those of you who haven't been with me for a while or have forgotten them because it's been a while, the 5 questions that it's a self-diagnostic. And I ask it all the time. And every client, every person I work with, I give them this questionnaire. It's not that it's a test for them. It's a value questionnaire. It's a positioning, strategic questionnaire. And the questions are, what does it do? Who does it serve? What does it change? Why do they care? What's in it for me? I'll do it again. What does it do? Who does it serve? What does it change? Why do they care? And what's in it for me? And when we ask all those questions, we get a very, very clear picture of what this thing, situation, event, idea actually means in all of its different component parts, right? If everyone is friendly and happy and waving, and we go away from the week for the weekend and we come back on Monday and everybody's grumpy and complaining and gossiping and feeling sorry for themselves, something changed. Something shifted in the time that we were away. And before we just automatically try and get in step with whatever that dance is, it's helpful to ask those 5 questions, because they were happy and smiling and excited on Friday, and now they're the exact reverse on Monday. That's not I slept on the wrong side. That's something, some event, some influence was introduced that wasn't introduced to us because we were away. So how do we find out what it was? Well, we can ask. Asking's good. What happened? What do you mean what happened? What happened over the weekend? Why? Why is it always blah, 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 blah? Okay. So what happened on the weekend? Blah, 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 blah. Complain, 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 complain. Don't say anything. Eventually they say, fine, well, if you have to know, and then they tell you. And then you walk away. Don't I stay? Don't I try and talk them out of it? No, not right then, because they're in it. They've decided to own it. They've got the adrenaline. They're in their fight or flight. Something happened. Or it was the reverse. Everybody was negative on Friday. You come back Monday and everybody is Sister Mary Sunshine. And you ask the same thing and they tell you. So-and-so won the lottery and gave us each a generous portion. Something. Everybody tried that 5-day diet and it actually worked. Something. And then we still get to decide if that's what we want. Or we're happy with the reverse. It's always our decision. It's always our opportunity to choose. So what I was talking about specifically when I came up with the theme was when people change the focus of their agenda, when they change the focus of the promise they make, when they, we're known for this, and then all of a sudden we're not. Why? What happened? Who's doing it now? The thing that I wanted. Oh, I don't know. We don't care. We've moved on. When something shifts in a way that makes us uncomfortable, we have a couple of options, especially if something shifts and we feel under attack in some way. We definitely have options then, because one of the things we feel we want to do is attack back, right? Tackle me, I tackle you. But that doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve them either. It serves a totally other purpose, which is not ours. I got my list. I got my 5 questions. Suddenly becoming an attack dog wasn't on the agenda whatsoever. So I want to talk about why we do that. A situation happened to me not long ago that opened my eyes to a pattern I had never paid attention to. I had been aware factually of certain things, but I hadn't focused long enough. I hadn't taken ownership of it. I hadn't g- coordinated my interests with it. Did I encourage it? No, I didn't encourage it, but I didn't prevent it either. So was I complicit? Probably, without realizing it, thinking, without consciously realizing that I was complicit. And then one day the behavior was over the top. And I was stunned because A, I was busy. Everything was happening as it usually did. And suddenly this was different. And I didn't know where it had come from. And I didn't know why. And I didn't really feel that I had time in the moment to investigate it. So I did the only thing that seemed appropriate at the time. I reassured everyone else that I was aware and did nothing. So long as everybody in my circle was okay, they understood that I was aware, and I said, I will be dealing with it later. And that gave everybody permission to breathe a sigh of relief because they were my team and we were doing a job. And it wasn't until later that I made the decision about what to do. And I didn't respond in kind. I didn't change the narrative. I didn't in any way, shape, or form buy into either side for or against it. I walked away. I opted out. I voted with my feet and simply chose to no longer engage either way. And for me, that ended the conversation. It ended the confusion. It ended the challenge. It ended the dilemma because I chose to walk away. Why did I choose to walk away? Because I asked myself the 5 questions. What does it do? Nothing of value. Who does it serve? Not me. What does it change? Everything of value. Why do they care? I have no idea. What's in it for me? Nothing. Those were the answers. And I said, alrighty then. Now, a lot of us can't do that in a workplace environment if someone has decided to be perfectly filthy. A lot of us can't draw a line, a figurative or a chalk line down the hallway with the water cooler on one side and us on the other. And a lot of us are in work scenarios in which paths overlap, cross, we're expected to collaborate and coordinate. And what that means is that we still get to choose where we draw the lines and how much we no longer engage and invest and infuse. We don't have to report to HR and say, he hit me. We don't have to say, make it stop, because we have our own agency. All we can do, all we need to do, is draw a polite line the way you would behave with a stranger and do no more and no less. Because when behavior changes and friendship or connection or informality or trust are in any way compromised, then the decision clearly was made to revert to stranger status. And that we can do. It's not easy. Habit is unconscious. It's something that we have to remind ourselves about, but we can. And quite often, without realizing, we do. So that's the strategy behind it. If people change the plan without a consultation, that action speaks volumes. If they change the plan without a consultation, and I don't mean asking permission, I mean a conversation, a collaboration, a brainstorming. If they change the plan, they have divested themselves. They have stepped away from the connection you had. You are not connected anymore. Good morning, Charles. How is everything down where you are? And so when they have made that step, there's nothing really you need to do. You don't have to take the flag down. You don't have to do anything. You can just stop being proactive. It's easier to say it than to do it. And I realize that I just used the word just, which means it's not that big a deal. However, habit is a big deal. Habits, patterns make us feel safe. So that's the story part of it. What is the technique? What are the tools? Because it happens around us a lot. And I'll tell you, the more we are bombarded with noise that makes us tense, that is overriding our ability to think clearly, the more easily we forget that we're walking our own path. The more easily we just fall in step without realizing it. And it isn't until we look back and say, oh, that was the moment right there. Huh. And I didn't even see myself do it. It's no shame or blame. This is what life is like. What is important, rather than, beating ourselves up, is to recognize when it happened so we can have more control when it happens again. How do we do that? I'm going to tell you. The assumption is in the beginning that everybody's on board. By the time we all get together, everybody's on board. Maggie and I were having a very, very cool brainstorming session yesterday. And we were talking about an individual who said, meeting at such and such, and everybody rearranged their schedules. And then the message came, no, can't do it then, meeting postponed until. And so everybody rearranged their schedules again. And then the second time, nope, can't make it. And everybody said, okay, good, I was busy anyway. And then the thing came, yeah, we're going to meet at 5:00. And everybody said, no. And a bunch of people said, why? And the person said, oh yeah, gosh, sorry, I don't know what I was thinking. It wasn't that important. We can do it tomorrow. So they didn't do the 5 questions when they informed everybody. And nobody else did the 5 questions when they all just changed their schedules and their calendars in order to fall into alignment. But third time's a charm. Third time, especially it was at 5:00. Third time, they all said, here's the thing. No. We forget when we get comfortable with each other that there are niceties and formalities for a reason. And what they're for, certainly in the beginning, it's how do you do and so on. What they're really for is to keep us sharp, to keep us paying attention. Because if we just allow scope creep, we don't notice when things go off the rails. Maggie and I are working on a concept that involves early radar warning, early recognition before you hear the rumble of the avalanche. The early warning signs. What are the telltale elements? How do we identify them? And the answer is ahead of time. One of the things that people don't do, and I've talked about this a lot, is we don't look for the outcome. I was having a wonderful conversation this morning with Richard, my fabulous book client. And I had said to him, What do you want the book to do for you after it's published and it's in your hand? And he didn't have an answer. Most authors don't the first time. He had said, I'm writing it as an homage to my parents. And I said, okay. And so you want to be able to say, job done, mom and dad, job done. With love, your loyal son. Is that what you want? And he said, yes. And I said, that's it. You don't care if you sell the books. He said, oh, no, I want to sell the books. And I said, okay, why do you want to sell the books? Do you want to sell the books so people would read them? Or do you want to sell the books for the money? And he said, can I have both? And I said, you can, but if you want both, it's a different book. Because if you want them to read it, it has to be a book for them, not a book for you, for your parents. We have to add that third layer. Otherwise, they have no reason to read it. Good point. And I said, or if you just want them to stare at it and go, oh my God, then you fill it with eye-catching pictures. He said, that's not what I want. I want the story. And I said, all right. So therefore, we now know the outcome. Now that we know the outcome, we go back through the content and we look for anywhere that the content does not lead us there. Because if it wanders off, books tend to do that when you're not paying attention. Books like to write themselves when you're not looking. When you realize you veered off track, you can make the decision to find your way back, or just delete something if it didn't really serve a purpose. So this is a learning curve for most first-time authors. The question is always, and what is the outcome? What is the end game? What do you want to be able to say when you're done? And very few people do that. Certainly people with ADHD struggle with it. And a lot of people have ADHD. ADHD is not a disease. It is a brain formation. Quite often it's aggravated by uncertainties in our early lives. And it's just a certain part of our brain forms more slowly than is considered average. And when that part of our brain, it's the prefrontal cortex, when it forms more slowly, we're not as good at certain things. We're a whole lot better at others. One of the things we have trouble with is cause and effect. And so if we don't understand that we can control that by rewiring our brains, then we can get ourselves out of the way of people who change their purpose because it's not ours to own. So one of the tools is to ask the 5 questions. And I'll repeat them again because you weren't taking notes. You didn't know there was going to be a quiz. When something happens, when you hear or see something that is different than the moment before, the 5 questions are, what does it do? Who does it serve? What does it change? Why do they care? What's in it for me? What does it do? Who does it serve? What does it change? Why do they care? What's in it for me? That helps us get our position clear. Now, what's in it for me? We ask those 5 questions again. If I do this in response, what's in it for me? What does it do if I do that? Who does it serve if I do that? What does it change if I do that? Why do they care if I do that? What's in it for me if I do that? Does it seem complicated? It's the same 5 questions. And what it does is it teaches us reverse engineering. If we put the footings for the bridge here on top of the bog, we're going to be fixing this bridge till the end of time. We could put the bridge 50 yards further down beyond the bog and put a curve in the road on the other side. That might be a good idea down the line. Department of Unintended Outcomes, hello. So what is the technique? The technique when the focus has shifted. the technique when something has changed and we were not consulted. The very first decision is, what does it mean? Not jump to conclusions. What does it mean? It takes 5 seconds. What does it mean? What does it do? Who does it serve? What does it change? What do they care? What's in it for me? What does it mean? Does it matter? Once we know what it means, does it matter in the overall scheme of things? Does it matter? Does it make a difference? Is it a bridge too far? Is it inconsequential? Is it the first step down a slippery slope? Worse still, or maybe better still, given awareness, is it the third or fourth step down a slippery slope, and taking it or seeing it happen allows us to suddenly, for the first time, see the previous ones that we didn't see or ignored? What do we want to do about it? We always have options. Do we need to have the last word? No, because get even doesn't serve us. Get even is part of that agenda. It's not our agenda. Our agenda was over here. Our agenda was picking flowers. Bird comes along, goes flirp on our heads. Are we going to pick up a rock and throw it at the bird? Are we going to get something and clean it off our head and then go back to picking flowers? Are we going to put our hand up and say, oh, it's not that bad, and keep picking flowers? Why are we going to attack the bird? Our purpose was picking flowers. What does attacking the bird do? Well, nothing, because the bird can fly, right? So we can't really attack it. But we've now forgotten our agenda. We are now invested in their agenda, in its agenda, in a new agenda involving them. And what does that do? How does that work? It doesn't. So when I posted the description of this, I said, because Pivotry in motion is the best move of all. We can react in anger, fear, surprise, delight. We can evaluate and respond on our terms. We can examine, explore, define, and say, thanks, but no thanks, which is also a response in its own way. So in these heightened times of people kvetching and moaning and saying, it's going to change everything, nothing will change, it's going to be brilliant, we're all going to die. In the midst of all the rhetoric, in the midst of all the hoopla, the most important thing of all is to take 5 seconds and remember who we are and why we came. Who am I? Who am I? I'm Abby Haggard. I'm Abby Haggard, military child, survivor, thriver, creator, person who can't walk through a lot of doorways without causing the utmost damned astonishment. Viking ancestors, a serious love of crazy shoes, and a desire to let you know that I have not left. I'm still here. And I have amazing, fun, exciting, new things to share with you. That's what matters to me. And I hope it's what matters to you. So I keep saying in these videos that there is a big announcement coming, and it is a big announcement, and it is almost here. And it's very difficult to keep the secret, but I want it to be absolutely ready. So I'm just telling you, very, very soon. In the meantime, between now and Thursday, while you're thinking about this video today, It's really helpful, as Maggie reminded me, to do the 5-second breathing exercise. It's the 30-second breathing exercise, 5-finger breathing exercise, and all you do is give yourself permission to breathe and release, to calm down, relax, and give yourself a chance to think of what you want to do next when you come back. And use your later folder. The later folder that I talk about for people who haven't heard of it before is a little folder. There's instructions in it. It says, got stress baggage? List your triggers in the breaks between your tasks to let them go. It's okay. You won't forget. You'll just read them later, right? Remember, you're in charge. So whatever it is that bugs you, whatever small thing, you write it down as soon as you can after it happens. And then just put the later folder in your pocket. Because when you take it out of your head and out of your heart and put it on the page, it's not taking up space. You are once again with a blank, happy page. Give it a try. It really works. I've taught it. I've used it for decades. So with all that said, when everyone around you starts to do strange things, give yourself permission to remind yourself that they're only human. And if you give them the distance they need, everything will be okay. All right. With all of that said, remember the drill. Be good to you. You deserve it. Your boundaries matter. If the story is uncomfortable, it's the wrong story. And you're allowed to rewrite it. Why? It's your story. You own the pen. Being good to you matters. It's not selfish. It's fuel to bring your best self to the table. And remember to hug your loved ones, because oh boy, do they deserve it. All right. And I will catch you next time. Thank you so much for watching. These videos are nothing without you.